7. Signs that predict how long you'll live after 70. Scientifically proven. The elderly old age. Have you ever sat quietly on a late afternoon, watching the last rays of sunlight stream through the window, and wondered, how much time do I have left? That's not a pessimistic question. It's a very human, very real thought when you turn 70, or when you see people around you starting to slow down, weaken, or even quietly leave this life. There is an old man named Mr. Trong, 84 years old, in a peaceful countryside in the central region. Every morning, he still uses a cane to walk around the village, a smile always on his lips. "I am old but still stronger than the kids," he often jokes. But people do not know that 5 years ago, he was bedridden for nearly a year after a stroke. And then, with just a few small changes, persistently practicing walking, keeping a goal in life, maintaining simple connections with the village, he has become living proof that old age is not the end, but a valuable journey if we know how to listen to our bodies. On the contrary, there is an old lady named Mrs. Lee, also 74 years old, who was once a famous literature teacher in Hanoi. But since her husband passed away, she rarely goes out, no longer eats on time, often suffers from insomnia, and her mood has clearly dropped. She once said, "Every day passes like a void, not knowing what to do." And since then, her health has clearly declined, both physically and mentally. You see, same age, same time. But each person has a very different way of life. So what makes one person live long and healthy, and the other person falls down day by day? The difference lies in the small, very small signs that we easily overlook. The way you walk, the way you sleep, the way you eat, your ability to keep your balance, the relationships around you, all are extremely important clues, scientifically proven to be able to predict longevity after the age of 70. And the best part is, these signs are completely reversible if you recognize them early and take action. Today, I will tell you those secrets, 7 signs that have been scientifically proven to predict how long you will live after 70. But it is not just dry theory. In each part, you will hear real stories, from old people in the countryside of Vietnam to famous scientists in Japan, from resilient smiles to the quietest moments of old age. You will recognize yourself in those stories. And who knows, you will also find a way to live a healthy, happy life for many more years. If you are truly concerned about your health and longevity, or that of a loved one approaching old age, please continue watching this video until the end. And before we get started with the first sign, don't forget to like the video if you find this important, subscribe to never miss any inspiring health stories, and comment to share your story or experience, or send this video to a loved one if you think they need it. On a chilly morning in suburban Minneapolis, Henry Campbell, 78, donned a heavy old coat and slowly laced up his sneakers. He stepped out of his front door and began walking around the block, as he had done for nearly a decade, rain or shine. Younger neighbors greeted him with a smile every morning, surprised that Henry's pace was as fast, steady as a man in his early 60s. Henry is not an athlete. He worked as a school bus driver for more than 30 years before retiring, but after watching a close friend suffer a stroke and die within a few months, he decided not to be passive. Every morning, Henry walks for exactly 35 minutes, sometimes even circling a park nearly 2 miles from his home. He doesn't use a cane, doesn't get out of breath, and never stops to rest. In contrast, just a few blocks away, George Milton, or 77, a former co-worker of Henry's, rarely leaves his home. When you see George at the grocery store, you can easily tell the difference. George walks slowly, wobbles slightly, often holding onto a cart or a shelf. Once George slipped in a snowy parking lot, and he was hospitalized for nearly 2 weeks with a fractured hip. It's no coincidence that scientists at the University of Pittsburgh found that older adults who maintain a steady, fast walking pace, especially above 0.8 meters per second, nearly 3 feet per second, live an average of 5 to 10 years longer than those who walk slowly. Why is that? Because walking speed is a comprehensive biomarker. Every step requires the entire body system to work in sync, from the leg muscles, heart, lungs, nervous system, to the brain's ability to maintain balance. If any part is weakening, you will see it clearly in the way you walk. It's like when your car starts to slow down. You know it's not just low gas. It could be old machinery, bad brakes, or a bad engine. The same goes for the human body. Ask yourself, Mom, when was the last time you crossed the street without having to rush? Have you ever found it difficult to climb a few steps? Do you find yourself taking breaks while walking through Walmart or Target? If the answer is yes, don't just think it's age. It could be your body's warning. that your overall health is declining, and if you don't take action now, you'll be caught in a cycle of decline, less movement, weakness, falls, loss of independence. What is the good news? You can improve your walking speed, no matter what age you are, and you don't need expensive equipment. No personal trainer needed. Start by walking around the block every morning, 10 minutes. Then gradually increase to 20 minutes each way. No rush, just regularity. Add in light exercises like knee raises, balance exercises like walking backwards, or climbing a few stairs every day. It's these simple things, repeated daily, that can improve your circulation, increase muscle mass, strengthen your lungs and heart, and most importantly, allow you to continue living independently, self-sufficiently, and happily. Have you ever experienced a noticeable change in your walking speed, or watched a loved one slow down over time? Share your story in the comments. Who knows, you might inspire someone else, or someone might see themselves in your story. And if you have a friend or loved one who is slowing down, send them this video. Just a gentle reminder, it could help them live another 10 healthy years. In the southern suburbs of Oregon, a 79-year-old man named Walter Davis lives alone in an old wooden house that he and his wife bought more than 40 years ago. Walter used to be a carpenter. His hands held the whole world, from the handsaw, hammer, to every piece of wood he used to make the dining table, bed, bookshelf. Walter's hands used to be very strong. His friends used to joke, shaking hands with him is like a tight iron clamp. No shaking, no softness, no loss to anyone. But as time passed, after his wife passed away, Walter started to go out less, lost interest in gardening, and stopped touching his tools. One day, while trying to open a jar of blueberry jam, he realized that his hand had no strength left. He tried turning the jar a second time, then a third time, but the lid still wouldn't budge. Walter sat there, lost in thought, then smiled sadly. I guess old age really is knocking on the door. But what he didn't know, and what many people don't realize, is that hand strength not only reflects aging, but also predicts the risk of overall decline. A famous study from the University of Michigan found that older adults with weak grip strength have a 67% higher risk of death than their peers with strong grip strength. It sounds simple, but think about it. When you hold a shopping bag, unscrew a bottle cap, carry a bucket of water, stand up from a chair by yourself, all require strength from the palm and forearm. Weak hand strength means that the whole body's muscles are decreasing. The nerve reflexes are slow, and the ability to resist falls is also significantly reduced. On the other side of the country, in Tampa, Florida, 82-year-old Evelyn Sanders still drives herself to the grocery store every Saturday and never asks her children or grandchildren to open a single can. Her secret? I use a pair of grippers every day. I squeeze tennis balls all the time. And I garden. Not to make flowers look pretty, but to keep my hands from wearing out, she laughs. Evelyn's hand strength was measured by the doctor and concluded as strong as a woman over 60, even though she is over 80 years old. You can try it right now. Hold an apple and squeeze it hard. Shake someone's hand, feel the grip. Or simply, open a bottle of water. If you find it difficult or feel weaker than before, don't take it lightly. Because if your hands are getting weaker, it means your body is getting weaker, and you need to take action before you lose control of your daily life. Simple but effective solution. Squeeze tennis balls for 5 minutes every day. Use a hand gripper, available online or at Walmart. While watching TV, try holding the water bottle with your fingertips. It's gentle and stimulates the hand muscles. If you have a garden, tend it, dig the soil, pull weeds, clip leaves. Not only will it keep your hands strong, it will keep your soul alive. There's a simple test you can do at home, no machines, no doctor needed, that can reveal something incredibly important. How long you're likely to live a healthy life. That test only lasted exactly 10 seconds. Nancy Robertson, 75, lives in Des Moines, Iowa. She was a nurse in the Army, strong, tough, never wanting anyone to help her. But recently, while washing dishes in the kitchen, she turned to walk back, and her left leg wobbled. She almost fell, only just holding on to the refrigerator handle to keep from falling to the floor. I'm tired, she thought, probably from lack of sleep. But in a community yoga class her daughter signed her up for, the instructor asked everyone to try standing on one leg for 10 seconds. Nancy, who had been a nurse during the war, once ran down the hospital corridor, unable to hold on for 4 seconds without holding on. She looked around. Several people her age were still standing straight, not swaying. That's when she knew. Her body was losing its sense of balance. And it wasn't just an inconvenience, It was a serious warning sign. Why is balance so important? Because balance is not just about your feet. It is a coordinated effort between your eyes, inner ears, brain, nervous system, and all your muscles. If you can't stand on one leg for more than 10 seconds, it may reflect neurological impairment, weak core and leg muscles, loss of natural reflexes when slipping or tripping, and most importantly, many studies have shown that people who cannot stand on one leg for 10 seconds after the age of 70 have twice the risk of death in the next 7 years compared to people with good balance. On the East Coast in Asheville, North Carolina, Ben Wallace, 81, still teaches Tai Chi to seniors at a community center every week. I don't play basketball like I used to, he jokes, but I can still stand on one leg while brushing my teeth. Ben's secret? Every morning he stands on one leg for 30 seconds while brushing his teeth. Walk up and down hills every week. And in particular, he spends 10 minutes every night practicing heel-to-toe walking to train muscle nerve coordination. How about you? Can you stand on one leg for 10 seconds? Don't take a little wobble lightly. One misstep, if your bones are brittle and your muscles are weak, can put you in bed for a year. Elderly patients hospitalized for falls have a surprisingly low survival rate, because after a fall, it is not just the broken bones, but the entire physiological system that begins to disorder, infection, loss of appetite, depression, loss of motivation to live. The good news is, balance can improve dramatically after just a few weeks of practice. Start by standing on one leg while brushing your teeth, 10 seconds on each side. Now practice walking on heels and toes down the hallway. Take Tai Chi, yoga, or light Pilates classes for seniors. Always wear soft-soled, well-gripping shoes. Don't walk barefoot on slippery floors. Have you ever almost fallen in the shower? Or did a loved one fall in the living room because of a slight slip? Share your story in the comments section, because that little story can wake up someone who is complacent about their daily imbalance. And if you see a friend, dad, or aunt starting to wobble, share this video with them. You might just save them from a dangerous fall. Bill Harper, 74, lives in Arizona, a sunny, windy state that seems to be made for retirees. He used to be an electrical engineer, a very disciplined person. Everything in his life had a clear schedule, from watering the plants, eating breakfast, even walking the dog. But since his wife, Lorraine, died of cancer, all the habits began to be disrupted. At first there were restless nights. Then he began to sleep later, wake up earlier, and in his sleep, often startled by recurring dreams of him and Lorraine sitting in a chair on the porch, hand in hand, the afternoon light tinting the tea she made them gold. He thought it was just missing the person who died. But then he started to forget things. He lost his wallet, his keys. He couldn't even remember the name of his newborn granddaughter. His blood pressure fluctuated. His eyes were always droopy from lack of sleep. But he didn't tell anyone, for fear of disturbing his children. On the other side of the country, in Vermont, a 76-year-old woman named Sandra James lives alone in a small cabin nestled in a shady maple forest. She goes to bed at 10 p.m. and wakes up at 6 a.m. without an alarm clock or interruption. Every morning she breathes in the fresh air, brews a cup of green tea, and writes in her diary. She still remembers the names of her grandchildren, their birthdays, and the pecan pie recipe she taught her daughter-in-law. Science calls it quality sleep, and according to research from Harvard University, people over 70 years old who have deep, regular sleep of 6 to 8 hours per night have a life expectancy 1.5 times higher than people who have unstable sleep, wake up often, or have prolonged insomnia. Sleep, not just rest. It is the process by which the body heals itself. And when you sleep, your heart adjusts its rhythm. Your brain begins to clear out accumulated toxins, like beta amyloid, one of the causes of Alzheimer's. The immune system is regenerated, helping you fight viruses, bacteria, and even cancer cells. But quality sleep doesn't come naturally if we don't create the conditions for it. Bill Shaku, after repeatedly refusing help, finally talked to his doctor. He was advised to turn off all electronic devices 1 hour before bed. Stop drinking coffee after 2 p.m. Take a light walk every morning in the early morning sun to help your biological clock stabilize again. And especially, every night write down 3 things you're grateful for, to keep your mind from spinning as you go to bed. After just 2 months, Bill's sleep improved. He was no longer tired. He no longer got his grandchild's name mixed up. And most importantly, he felt alive, not just existing. There is something few people dare to say out loud. Sometimes, death does not come because of illness, but because people stop seeing life as worth tasting. The story begins in a small town called Maple Grove, Wisconsin. There is an old lady named Edith Coleman, 82 years old. She was an elementary school cook for 25 years. People say that when Edith enters the kitchen, the air smells strangely fragrant. She's seasoned with memories, with habits, with love. But now, that kitchen was cold. There was no more clinking of spoons against pots. There was no more smell of apple pie wafting in the air every Saturday morning. There was no one sitting across the table from her anymore. After her husband died of a stroke and her 2 children moved away, Edith ate just to get by. Every meal, she would grab a can of soup, heat it in the microwave, and eat while watching TV. Some days, she skipped meals. Some days, she forgot she had eaten. And gradually, her skin became more wrinkled. Her voice became thinner, and she lost nearly 9 pounds in 4 months without even realizing it. The neighbor, a nurse named Mia, was the first to notice, not because she saw Edith weakening, but because her eyes no longer lit up when she heard about the grilled meatloaf sandwiches she used to make for her students. Elsewhere in Sacramento, California, 80-year-old Raymond Silva sets the table every night as if he were welcoming an honored guest. A tablecloth, clean china, a small glass of wine, and an empty chair across from him. The chair was reserved for his wife, Irene, who had died 7 years earlier. But he prepared the meal as if she were still there, sitting across from him, smiling as he ladled more soup into her bowl. Because for him, eating is an act of love, not a survival obligation. And he is still healthy, walking every morning, with stable blood pressure, clear memory, because every meal is a time for him to connect with life, with memories, with himself. Researchers at Tufts University once warned, lack of appetite and loss of taste are among the earliest indicators of organ failure and metabolic dysfunction in older adults. When you lose interest in food, it's not just a loss of sensation, it's your body stopping sending life signals. Loss of appetite can come from many things. Mild depression after retirement, age-related decline in digestive enzymes, drug abuse alters taste, or simply lonely. Remember, an aging body needs more nutrients, not less. Protein to maintain muscles, vitamin D to keep bones from getting brittle, good fats to keep the brain sharp, and above all, the joy of eating to keep life sweet. No need for fancy meals, just a bowl of hot homemade soup, not canned. A fresh apple instead of a soft cookie. A meal with someone to sit with, even if it's just 15 minutes of silence. Edith had changed. Mia, the nurse, had invited her to dinner every Tuesday, not at a restaurant, just homemade soup and peanut butter on bread. But from that day on, Edith started wearing an apron again. She made the old apple pie, shared it with the neighbors. The kitchen was warm, the table was occupied, and most importantly, there was a sparkle in her eyes. Can you still taste the food? Don't answer me. Answer when you pick up your spoon of soup tonight. If everything is bland, don't let that blandness spread to the rest of your life. No one lives without experiencing pain, anxiety, and loss. But how you embrace or let go of your worries determines how long you live and how you live. I'm going to tell you about a man named John Rains and what he learned after an afternoon of crying in his garage. John Rains, 76, lives in Montana, where the sky is always high and the air is as clean as it was decades ago. He is a veteran. He fought in the Vietnam War and survived in the jungle when he was not yet 25. After returning home, he worked as a postal worker for 34 years. People still say, John is the type of person who never complains, never cries. Until one day, he sat in his garage, light shining through the cracks in the hatch, and he cried like a baby. The reason? Not because of illness, not because of any great loss, just because that morning he had been angry with his daughter, who had cooked him breakfast and forgotten to put salt in the eggs. Just because of a little thing, he yelled, then felt guilty all day, then found himself no longer in control of himself. John didn't talk to anyone about it, but a week later, he went online to find a veteran support group, and from there, he began learning how to cope with stress. Did you know? Chronic stress in people over 70 is one of the factors that rapidly increases the risk of premature death, according to research from the U.S. National Institutes of Health. Stress is no longer the same as it was in your 30s and 40s, where you could sleep through the night and it was gone. As you age, stress builds up silently in your blood vessels, creating chronic inflammation, undermining your immune system, increasing your risk of stroke, Alzheimer's, heart disease, all without you even knowing it. But the saddest thing is, many people don't realize they're stressed. They don't scream. They don't smash things. They just quiet down. Sit quietly in front of the TV. Answer their kids curtly. Eat less, sleep less. And think, I'm fine. In Santa Barbara, Teresa Moore, 81, lives alone in a small beachfront apartment. She lost her husband and son 2 years in a row. No one has seen her cry, but she has begun to refuse to go out, to talk. I just like the quiet, she says. But that silence masked pain, and her body began to rapidly weaken, with no apparent medical cause. Until a friend suggested she try writing a letter to her husband and son. No sending, just writing. And in those pages, she released the pain that had been gnawing at her for years. And then, little by little, she stepped out onto the balcony, greeted her neighbors, and then lived again. Like dust accumulating in pipes, if not released, stress will suffocate life from within. There is no perfect formula, but there are small but magical ways for you to de-stress every day. Keep a diary. It doesn't have to be good. It just has to be real. Talk to an old friend. No advice needed, just an ear to listen. Practice deep breathing every morning. 4 seconds inhale, 6 seconds exhale. Listen to old music, or sing along to songs you know by heart. John, who once cried in the garage, now lives a different life. He tends plants. He occasionally writes letters to his late wife, telling her about the weather today, the dish he just cooked, or the funny story of his third-grade granddaughter. And he smiled more, not because life wasn't hard anymore, but because he didn't let worry swallow him up in silence anymore. Maybe you have had stress like that too, not loud, but long-lasting. If so, stop being silent. No one needs you to be strong all your life. You don't need to force yourself to prove you're okay. You just need to breathe and allow yourself to live a little lighter. Barbara Hughes, 79, lives alone in a second-floor apartment in a senior housing complex in Austin, Texas. She used to work as a librarian, chatting with students, reading to children, helping seniors find medical information on the computer. But since she retired, then her husband passed away, then her children got busy, then the pandemic came. She started to talk less and less. At first it was a few days without a phone call. Then it was weeks without seeing anyone other than the delivery man. Then one day, she herself forgot the last time she had a real conversation. She was fine, on the outside. Eating well, sleeping okay. No serious illness. But deep inside, she was hollow. One time, she dialed the wrong number. A young woman was on the other end. She was about to apologize and hang up, but then, she kept talking. About the weather, about the soup she was making, about the neighbor's cat, and the woman, instead of hanging up, listened. The call lasted 14 minutes, and Barbara burst into tears afterward, not because of the content of the conversation, but because someone finally listened to her without feeling obliged. A study from Brigham Young University concluded, loneliness in older adults can be as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases the risk of stroke, heart disease, depression, dementia, and, most importantly, significantly shortens life expectancy. No one is born to live alone forever. We need people to share, even the little things. The first yellow leaf falls on the balcony. The woodpecker visits at 5 a.m. The dish tried to cook according to the recipe, but it is too salty because I forgot to measure the salt. All of that, if no one witnesses it, makes life seem meaningless. In Seattle, there is an old man named Elijah Brooks, 84 years old. He has no children, no living relatives, but he is the most active member of the book club at the local library. Every month, he writes letters by hand to 3 elderly friends in other states whom he met through an online organic vegetable growing group. He doesn't have a family, but he has proactively created a second family for himself. And thanks to that, he is still healthy, still smiling, and still believing that tomorrow is something worth waiting for. If you are reading this, ask yourself honestly, how many people do you have left to call when you feel down? Does someone call you every week just to ask, how are you? Have you ever smiled just because of a short text message from an old friend? If not, it's time to take the initiative to reconnect. You don't need a lot of people. Just one person to stop being so quiet. Start small. Call back an old friend you lost touch with 10 years ago. Join a gentle yoga class, book club, or local embroidery group. Volunteer to read to children at the library. Text your grandchild. I miss you. Tell me what you did today. Barbara, who used to have no one to talk to, is now a founding member of a Saturday morning coffee and chats group at her apartment complex, where they just drink coffee, and chat. But the great thing is, no one in that group is lonely anymore. Maybe you're thinking, I'm old. Who would want to be my friend? If so, remember, you still have breath. And while you still have breath, you still have the right to be loved and heard. You have gone through 7 signs with me, from steps, hands, balance, to sleep, meals, emotions, and finally, the connections that we sometimes don't know we are losing. What do you notice? That old age doesn't come suddenly. It creeps in little by little, through a slow walk, a restless sleep, a phone call we hesitate to answer, or a meal we hastily finish. But at the same time, it's those little things that can be the starting point for a better life. You don't have to be a perfect old person. You just have to look at yourself today and choose to live just a little differently. Walk a few more steps every morning. Shake someone's hand when greeting. Stand on one leg for a few seconds every night. Turn off the TV 30 minutes earlier to get a good night's sleep. Have a really good meal. No rush, no boredom. And call an old friend just to say, I miss you. Because true longevity isn't about the number. It's about the quality of each day you have left. So, what did you learn today? Where do you see yourself in these signs? Leave a comment, not for me, but for yourself. Tell me, what will you change today to live longer, live better? And if you see someone, your parents, your neighbor, your old classmate, showing signs of slowing down and haven't noticed yet, share this video with them. It might be the kindest thing you do today, and the first thing that will add years to their life. And before we say goodbye, don't forget, click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because every week I will bring you a new story, a journey to live healthy, live meaningfully, whether you are 70, 80, or 90 years old. And especially, in tomorrow's video, we will explore an extremely important and unexpected topic. Warning: legs are the first thing to weak up. Elderly people must eat these 3 foods immediately to keep their legs strong and healthy and not lose the ability to walk. This is a video you can't miss, because when your legs lose their strength, your freedom is taken away. Stay tuned, because we won't let that happen. Thank you for being here, for patiently watching until the end of the video. Wherever you are, I wish you to live healthy, live happily, and live with all the belief that old age is not the end, but the last beautiful song. Like the video if you find this valuable. Subscribe so you don't miss out on meaningful stories and profound health lessons in the next video. And please share this video with those you care about, because you might be bringing them a ray of light that they desperately need.